Good evening, model railroaders, and welcome back to the Second Section podcast, where it's just regular guys talking about model railroading. I'm your host, Andy Dorsch, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mike Ostertag. Hi, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I saw you eating an ice cream cone pre-show, so I thought that was
I don't
pretty
know what
awesome.
you're talking about. I see no ice cream in here.
Oh, yeah, because you put her down pretty quick.
It's in my belly.
That's pretty quick. So you're doing good. Got the ice cream. You want to keep the freelance train rolling?
Why not?
We should.
Nothing else to do. Why not?
Why not? Yeah. So
there's enough time. The prototype guys get everything all the time. They get they have a whole world out there.
Yeah, they do.
You know.
So tonight our guests are Christopher Palmieri and Doug Watts.
Howdy.
So welcome to the show, fellas.
Hi.
Thanks. Thank you.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. And we're gonna be talking about freelance model railroading and a little company out there called HomeShops LLC, right?
That is the name of the company, yes, sir.
All right, that sounds really good. So, we have a pretty good audience in here tonight. We're up to about 90 folks in the chat this evening. And Chris, why don't we do some introductions here? So for those who don't know who you are, why don't you give us a little background, what it is you're into for modeling and you know how it all got started.
Well, all right. Obviously, my name is Chris Palmieri, and I am a modeler, as we all are. And my particular niche is the freelance niche. I've been exposed to model railroading since I was a child. My father and my uncles were involved in it, as well as on the rail fanning side. I grew up in New Orleans.
Okay.
So the Crescent City Model Railroad Club was my original introduction to a high-level freelance concept. So it was just natural to me from a young age that there would be something other than just the prototype railroading that you see in the modeling world. And I now live in Fort Worth. I day job now 25 years with the BNSF.
Really?
And, yeah. And you know, I got out of modeling for a while, a long time, and when I got back into it, I thought I want to get back into enjoying what I like about the railroading and model railroading, but not necessarily take home with me all of the reminders of it is a job and it is work. So that really pushed me to go the freelance route. So I've developed my own freelance concept. I call it the Meridian Speedway. I've got a website devoted just to it, meridianspeedway.com.
Really?
And as things got rolling, and I saw that, you know, Facebook connected me with a lot of other modelers who are also interested in freelance. So relationships began, and I got to realize that there's really a lot of stuff out there that people are creating that I would like to incorporate into my world. But it's always been a time constraint. If I wanted, Doug, if one of your brother's cars, if I wanted to have one for his freelance outfit there in Temple of My Road, I would either have to paint it myself or I'd have to get him to paint it, you know, and nobody really had time for that. So I decided in 2021 to test the theory that there is a market for freelance equipment, you know, on a higher scale than just the average or occasional Accurel run that somebody would do of a single car. And we're up to now our sixth car, which we're going to discuss during this show, and we've got a lot more neat stuff in the pipeline. So that's
outstanding.
what we're doing. Yeah.
So let me see. Did I find the right one here? The East-West Railway through the Mid-South.
That is a blog post, I think, on my website.
Okay.
And there, I've got a whole library page with a number of essays. So yeah,
this is your website.
Correct.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so you know, I grew up in New Orleans, and you know, it's not an economically prosperous part of the country, so we got to see a lot of dying aspects of railroading. And there was this Mid-South piece up there, the IC sold off, and I got to watch that piece of railroad go from a 10 and 5-mile-an-hour branch line to major transcontinental artery. I mean, who here, who in this audience has actually gotten to witness that kind of a transformation? So,
right.
kind of inspired me to write the storyline for the Meridian Speedway, but I obviously didn't go the prototype route. I changed the image and some of the operating plan and such to meet what I wanted to do.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, do you currently have a layout, or is that in progress as well?
The layout is not currently in progress, but that's the neat thing about our hobby in the digital age is there's so many aspects of this hobby beyond just the brick and mortar layout.
Yeah,
you
right.
can create the concept, you can create the rosters, you can create the train flow and the traffic patterns all on paper, and for me that's just as much fun as gluing ballast to the layout surface and painting the ties. But the intent is to build a railroad at some point. It's we're here in Texas where we do not have basements like you guys have up there, so it's a little bit more challenging. But the kids are getting older here, so I envision there being more room.
There you go.
Yeah.
One of our listeners and former guest Tom Klomoski.
Mm-hmm.
If a bedroom opens up, he's the guy to call. He'll fill it up for you.
Kidding, right?
Well, thanks for the introduction, Chris.
Yeah,
and then Doug, we have this is your first time on the show, so welcome to the second section. Do you want to give everyone just a little background and info on you and your interests in model railroading?
Yeah, thanks very much for the intro and the invite to be on this evening. And,
yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I've been interested in trains all my life and recently retired professional railroader after 26 years. Very fortunate, very rewarding career. Spanned 5 different railroads, 2 Class 1s, 2 regionals, and Amtrak.
Wow.
Have also had the opportunity to do some consulting internationally and domestically on several different rail-based projects. And I know Chris from our days together at BNSF in Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found out that he was the brains behind HomeShop, I said, I think I'd like to get involved in what's going on there and see, what I can do to help him continue moving forward. He's done a great job in 2 years. I see my opportunity with him to continue moving this forward. My interest in model railroading, I don't have a layout.
Okay.
I get to operate on some fine layouts across the country on a regular basis.
A little bit envious of some of your travels, by the way.
And had plans to build a layout, had the room picked out, etc. Got in more and more into operations, and I thought, you know what, I don't think I really want to manage that project right now. Plus, I have a buddy here that's probably about 45 minutes from me. He has a CSX Philly subdivision under construction. We've got a regular work group that gets together every Wednesday afternoon. So we've been working with him. So I said, I'll put my construction initiative behind him.
There you go. So you're still getting the modeling, scratching the modeling itch,
yes,
so to speak, but and being part of a work crew. That's awesome. So you guys get together. What is it? You said every Tuesday?
No, it's every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday?
Yeah, get together from 1 to 5. Got a good work team there, just making a lot of progress, and we're pretty excited. And I think he's seeing his vision. He's seeing the vision now come into sharper focus. So I'm very happy for him because I know he's been working on this for quite a while.
Oh man, that's really cool that you get to help out, bring someone's focus or vision to reality. That's and is it designed for operations as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh
absolutely.
Man. So you're gonna get the best of both worlds then, to be able to help build it up and then get to run on it as well.
Exactly.
So Chris was saying that you've been able to do some traveling. What's the most notable layout that you've been able to operate on in recent times here?
Recently, I had the opportunity. As a matter of fact, got back late Sunday night from a Front Range Ops Invitational out in Colorado. Had the opportunity.
Ooh.
Yeah, had the opportunity to
Mike's...
I'm done.
Go ahead, Doug. Don't listen to Mike.
Did I say something wrong there, Mike?
Oh no, just nothing but 100% pure jealousy. That's all it is. Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering what his invite was.
Well, I was fortunate enough to get the invite, and the way that the organizer set it up is he wanted to get some folks that he has operated with, and he put together a event that spanned Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We actually had the opportunity to operate on 3 layouts, 2 of the layouts twice, and then 1 layout once. We operated on Doug and Barb Geiger's Granite Mountain Railway, John Parker's BNSF Fall River Sub, and Dave Stewart's O-Gauge Appalachian and Ohio.
Really?
Well,
Yeah.
I've been following that layout ever since I was a kid. Like, for a long time. That was one layout that I've always wanted to see. Is it as impressive in person as it looks like in the magazines when I've seen it?
Very much so. And an interesting thing there, Mike, is this is actually, as David has set up on his website, this is the A&O 2.0.
Really?
Really?
I had an opportunity to see his original layout because when I lived in Fort Worth, I used to travel with a group of guys, and we'd do road trips. We'd go to Kansas City, we'd go to Tulsa, we'd go out to Rocky Ops each year. And so I saw the 1.0 version of the A&O a number of years ago, and it was a unscheduled session that we had one Saturday night, and it was impressive. Then the new version is in a 3,000 square foot basement, and it's impressive.
What's more impressive, the working hump yard or the rain room?
Well, yeah, we had the rain room. I passed through the rain room, and
oh my goodness,
got to visit the hump, saw that. But I was at a location called Morrison, so my duty was taking inbound coal trains, taking the cars through the shaker and the prep plant, putting them in the prep yard, and then after a set amount of time, bringing those cars out, classing those into outbound coal trains. And then David had a train that he called the CX Fun. It was an ABA set of Fs with 10 loaded hoppers of coal in the caboose. And basically the idea was that you just take the train and you go from point to point. And it was pretty cool.
Unbelievable.
This is O scale.
Correct.
It's all O scale.
Yeah. So impressive.
So I think the pictures you had up there, I think that was from the first version. He does have a newer website that has photographs from the current rendition of his layout.
I'll have to put that down in the show notes for those to check into it. What was that like operating on O scale? I've never operated on O scale before. Is it a lot easier than HO because of the size, or?
Well, with older eyes, it's easier to see. It's easier to see certain things. But what got my attention was the the size of the equipment, the fidelity of the sound, and that's nothing against HO sound, because I've operated like at John Parker's, some great sound there. But one interesting thing was when you were building a train or operating a train, you can see it in HO, but you can't hear it. You could hear the slack run in and out on those O scale cars.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God.
Yep.
You can almost feel it.
So was that
That's
Chris?
really cool.
You can almost feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
But 3,000 square feet, Andy?
I'm pretty sure that's what it says on his website.
That's what it says
on the new
website.
version of the website.
My God.
And
I had the opportunity to visit after the Rocky Mountain show in Denver in April, and what's neat is it's a series of rooms. So as you transition from one room to the next, you're immersed into whatever that world of that room is, and the rest of the railroad, it disappears. So it's all in O scale.
Yep.
And it's neat to see it's a freelance railroad, right?
Yeah.
So it had my interest in particular. Nicely done.
Yeah, the operations are great, but a big takeaway for me, fellas, was the fellowship and camaraderie.
Oh, cool.
We had very gracious hosts that they rolled out there. They couldn't have done a better job of rolling out the red carpet to our group. So we all felt very welcome. They told us that they really appreciated the fact that we were there, because they said, hey, without operators, the railroad doesn't do anything. So, but very, very, very appreciative and thankful that we were able to do that.
No, that's outstanding. Yeah, so I'll have to get that website up there for you, out in the show notes. That's really cool. Very envious of you myself. But that's a great introduction. So, so I want to kick it over to the section crew this evening. We got 117 people in the chat on the live stream tonight. So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. So tonight, we're gonna have Chris and Doug, basically taking questions and fielding some comments and joining in the camaraderie here tonight on the second section as we talk about HomeShops LLC.
Hey, you know what else I just realized? This is the first. This is a first for the podcast too.
What's that, meow?
We actually have 3 full-time railroaders.
I'm the odd man out.
You're the odd man out. Yeah. We actually have 3 prototypes. I've got over 30 years in. Matter of fact, it's 31 as of the 16th of September is my 31st. That was my first
short timer.
Yeah, short timer. Yes, I am. I got 6.5 years.
My gosh.
But and then Chris being with BNSF and Doug doing what he, you said you're retired now, right, Doug?
Correct.
Yeah. See, we got to keep working, Chris, so we can. How's it go? We got to keep working so Doug can live the life he wants.
Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
There you go. There you go.
That's a railroader. That's an inside railroaders joke.
Right.
Oh, that's outstanding. So we'll talk about talk about HomeShops a little bit. So if you guys have questions in the section crew, get them into the chat. We'll bring them up on screen. Remember, let's keep it railroad and modeling related this evening, and also keep it civil. We do have some moderators in the chat this evening. They got the little blue wrenches next to their name. They will give you the stanky boot if you get out of hand. So thanks again for tuning in as we kick this off. So Chris,
yes, sir.
HomeShops. It's been around. You can see behind me here, one of my favorite companies, out there for rolling stock. And how did this all come about?
Well, I hate to say it out loud, but I give full credit to COVID.
Okay.
Hey, COVID was good for something.
Yeah. Well,
right.
And both all y'all can understand this when you get involved in your career and you're managing a full-time family life. You don't really think about starting something else, and the extra time that period provided, where I was filling other leisure time with, let me get more involved in the model railroading, and see what else is going on. I think in 2020, I personally painted 40 freight cars after having not painted anything for about 10 years. I call it my COVID fleet. But,
wow.
That really got me into, all right, well, what about this railroad? What about that railroad? How do and I actually started reaching out to a few people looking for decals, or can you paint this for me? And as I watched people, and I every time I do an interview, I give a little bit of credit to a fellow named Patrick Harris, whom I've known from my time in New Orleans in the 1990s. We both lived there at the same time, and we're often just randomly trackside photographing the same trains at the same location. He started a freelance venture. He calls it 3-Notch, and he primarily focuses on Accurel products. And I was watching Patrick just come out with a car, and then 2 cars, and then 3 cars, and I'm watching him post them on Facebook. And, the first few times they'd be up for a week, and then he'd sell out. And then I watched that evolve to he'd post them, and 3 hours later, they were all sold out. And I thought, I know the market is there. I know the market is there for freelance equipment at a higher level than Accurel. Not knocking Accurel. It's definitely got its place, and I have quite a bit of Accurel equipment. But it occurred to me that the only way I was going to test that theory and see these cars come around is if I put shut up and put up, right? So I reached out in 2021 to a number of manufacturers, and Dave Lowell back at Tangent was the first one to respond, and the rest is history. So we did the PS 4750s as our first car. And man, I tell you, I sure learned a lot about the manufacturing process and about, all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and how long things take and all the issues. So now that I understand just how long these timelines are, it's become evident to me to grow. We've just got to keep getting more and more irons in the fire, have different pipelines at progress. So when there's an issue with a Rapido car, there's a Tangent car coming in, and then there's an Atlas car coming in, right? So we're up to 7 manufacturers that we have projects in the works with at various stages. And I've learned to get away from talking about things too far in advance, because when you announce you're working on this program, people in their mind get this vision. Okay, well, there it is, and there's going to be no issues, and I'm going to expect it here at this date, and then we all see what's happened in the world over the last 2 years, right? So we've got a lot of neat stuff in the pipeline, one of which is our 6th car, the Mini High Cube.
Yes.
And as you were running your intro, I went ahead and made the pages live on homeshops.net. So 5 rows of the Mini High Cubes are now available. Let me see if I can share a screen, if that's all right.
Oh yeah, would you please?
And
this is awesome.
A second section exclusive.
Look at that.
We'll give it the full screen here.
Absolutely. So these are 5 road names, all freelance, Mini High Cube cars. We've actually done 6 road names, and we will release the 6th one later on, hopefully this month, if not the beginning of next month, because we've got something special going on with that car. But top left there is the Cass County, which I think most of
never heard of that railroad.
Never heard of the Cass County.
Heard of it. No.
Tom John, just love what he does with his scenery.
Tom Johnson's the best.
About the Cass County and Tom Johnson. All of us as freelancers, we would like to create the vision that what we're looking at could exist in the real world. And Tom Johnson just does an amazing job of with his scenery and his photography. He changes the seasons on his layout.
Right. Yeah, right.
Photographs, right? So to bring him into the family with this car is just it really makes me happy. Top right is the Phoenix Turnbow and Apache. That's our 2nd club car railroad.
Really?
With. So in the Phoenix area is a organization that's been around, I think, since the 1940s, called the Thunderbird Model Railroad Club. And the Phoenix Turnbow and Apache is their club railroad. And as I was putting together this order, just kind of perusing online, they had actually had a couple of Mini High Cubes painted up already, done and running around. And I thought, well, there's a perfect plug-in. So let me reach out to those guys, and I did, and they were all over the project. Bottom left there's the Springfield, Omaha, and Denver. This railroad belongs to a fellow named Joey Ferrito. And I've got to tell you, it's I think relatively new-ish as far as being out there, but he's got a Facebook page and he posts content, and all of the stuff that he puts out there, it just looks like, wow, I'd like to learn more about this. It's just classy, So I reached out to him to see if that was a good fit, and he was just wonderful to work with. Bottom right is a railroad called the Delaware and Allegheny. Now, this is a situation where a road owner actually reached out to me and before I came across his work, and he's got a freelance railroad. And as I started looking at the material and, just what he's done, it's again, top notch. You could look at it and think this was a railroad that's been around for 20, 30 years. He's got it that developed as far as the corporate scheme. His layout is just awesome. So that's kind of how that one came to be on this list. And then, Andy, I think you said you were pretty excited about the Pillar Valley car of Kenny Ravenscroft. He does a lot of he does a lot of weathering, and he's got some really neat locomotives and critters and things that you just look at and you think, okay, this is cool. I'm not just looking at another UPGevo. And I wasn't entirely sure if he would think that car would be a good fit, but we had a couple conversations, and I think it's just a beautiful car. And it's that rounds out what's available today. Each one of those cars are available each one of those road names is available in 2 numbers, and only 72 copies of each number were made as part of this order. So I expect that the bulk of them will go pretty quick.
Wow.
So Chris, what are you selling them for at a what's your price point?
$52.95.
Wow, well, that's a steal.
That's a great bargain.
That is a really good price.
Wow,
72 of each. So yeah. Yep. Get the wallets out right now, section crew.
Yeah, let's sell it. Let's sell them out before the show
tonight.
Chris, now the history behind these 40-foot cars. Now I know that in the prototype, I know that a lot of them were used for appliance service and things of that nature. Have any of the layout owners specified anything like that, like to have a specific lettering, like say for appliance service only, or like lease to Whirlpool or anything like that? Is there any custom lettering on any of these like that?
The Cass County car comes the closest to it, and the Cass County represents a short line type railroad in Indiana. And, as we had this conversation, to your point, these cars were built for a very short period of time. I think this particular prototype car was only built for a 3-month period.
Wow.
In 1968. And so the conversation I had with Tom Johnson was, these cars were built for appliance service, and very quickly in the real world, these were replaced with 60-foot high-cube box cars for appliances. So it would not be unreasonable that these cars, relatively new, as they're replaced by 60-foot cars for their intended purpose, would be available for pickup. And being a rural railroad through farm country, there are a lot of John Deere farm implement facilities.
Yep.
The part of the world that the Cass County served. So the conversation we had was, what if we penciled in a small number of these cars, maybe 20 of them, that were picked up by the Cass County to serve the farm implements businesses along the line, right? And this one actually has a reverse video black stencil on the right side of the door that says that it's assigned to the John Deere Indiana Farm Implements. And the stencil on the left hand has the agent and location on the Cass County where it's to be routed to when it's empty. So that's the only one that's specific, very specific for an intended purpose for something other than appliances and as delivered. But a lot of cars in the real world, you buy a fleet, it's a box car. It's a 40-foot box car, and it's got more headroom than the average 40-foot box car. So any car that is bought for that purpose like this can certainly carry something other than what it's intended and be on any traffic lane out there, right?
Yeah.
Pilar Valley car. One thing that's really neat about what Kenny Ravenscroft has done with the Pilar Valley is he has not nailed down or geographically identified where in the country this railroad is. It's everything is just. You look at it, and one day I'll look at his post, and I'm like, well, this looks like. I mean, it's obviously forest related when you look at what he's got, but I think this could be somewhere in Oregon. And I look at it again, I think this could be in the Northeast somewhere, and I look at it again, and I think it could be in the South, somewhere. Just the way he's done it, and I think the lesson there is, if you create a vision and an image of your model railroad that is believable, you don't necessarily have to lock down every one of the details. So that car, to that point, if in your world you want to interact with the Pillar Valley on wherever your railroad is and whatever service you desire, well, you can plug it in and it's a gorgeous car. The Springfield, Omaha, and Denver car is intended for appliance service, and it's got a return to agent EL Erie Lackawanna in Ohio stencil on it, and that is part of a pool where those types of cars also had similar stencils on the prototype side. So those are the three that come closest to being somewhat specific, if that makes sense.
That's actually pretty cool that you able to implement that level of detail on the car itself, because a lot of times those are the small things that are kind of overlooked, and it's always a guessing game. And these were, like you said, these were actually cars that were built for a specific purpose, and to have them repurposed to other things, like you say, and for the Cass County, that's an awesome idea. That's a really, really cool idea.
Well, I'll tell you, that's what's been really fun about these projects is having the conversations with different road owners. How would this look? I'm going to try and share a different screen if I can. Stop screen.
Just a news flash for everyone listening while he brings that up. I just placed my order right now while we were talking for the Pillar Valley and Cass County. So those two aren't available. There's two of them in there that aren't available anymore. So right while we're talking, and then I may have just shared the website in the chat here as well. So for
after Andy bought them all out,
after I bought mine, everyone else can have theirs now. So.
Doug, how many are you going to buy?
No comment.
There you go.
All right, present, share screen, window.
Man, I wish I was an HO.
You can be, Mike. You can be an HO.
It doesn't do any good to sit in a box.
So while we're talking, we do have a couple of questions. So you touched on it a bit earlier, Chris.
Yeah.
So what's the criteria to get a freelance run through HomeShops?
Well, there's a number of things that I consider. Number one, obviously it's an investment. Each road name of each car that I do is roughly in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. So okay. I have to number one make the decision. Does this have curb appeal? Does it look like something that people are going to look at it and think, yeah, I would run this on my railroad, right?
Right.
So what I look for with that is, what is the road owner doing to market his railroad? A lot of people have reached out to me and said, hey, this is what I've got, and what do you think? And I'm like, that looks cool. And I go to the Facebook pages and I go to Google and YouTube and search for it, and zero content comes up. And I'm like, well, my thought process is, if the road owner, his or herself, isn't championing the brand, it's not that important to that person to do, then is it a riskier investment? So when with the Delaware and Allegheny car, that was one where I did not see much when I searched for it, and I suggested Joe Zabrowski, if I said, what you've shown me looks fantastic, and I really think that railroad has a lot of runway ahead of it. What do you think about, would you be able to start sharing content on the Facebook, the Freelance Model Railroad Facebook groups? And not only did he start doing that, but he also created a Facebook page for the Delaware and Allegheny. And
nice.
He's got a layout with an operating crew. So I got the sense, as an investor in his railroad, that he was going to champion that long term. And it's those are the two major components. Is it does it look good? Is it sellable? And it's subjective. There are things that I have done that I did not think were the best, and they actually ended up being sellers, right?
Yeah.
But those are the two criteria. Then once we get a railroad on board, then it becomes a hurry up and wait game for the right type of car to become available. Because we're not a manufacturer. We're not, if I want to make a 40-foot boxcar tomorrow, that's a regular 40-foot boxcar tomorrow. I can't make a 40-foot boxcar tomorrow until one of the manufacturers we have a relationship with says, Chris, we're going to do a 40-foot boxcar, right? So not every car type that becomes available to us is the right fit for the right freelance model railroad. So there's a lot of railroads that we're going to do and would like to do that are kind of tabled. And now we're waiting for a manufacturer to say, this car is available. Have you got any volume to add to it? And when they do, we'll reach out to those railroads again and have the conversation. All right, now this car is available. And you guys all know how long these timelines are. So if
Right.
a manufacturer is going to produce car type A once every 4 years, and they just ran it last year, but that is the right car for this model railroad. It may be 3 years before that car comes back up, and then it's a 12 to 18 month process to actually get it produced and built. So these timelines are really, really long, but it's all about what's been the most rewarding about this Home Shops adventure is just, meeting people. It's reconnected, like Doug Watts.
Sure.
It's reconnected me with great people from the past, and built a lot of new relationships. And this just is going to. These are the seeds planted for future projects that are going to come.
Nice. So, did you manage to get that picture to come up, or was it? Or did I?
Let me try this again. What I was going to do is zoom in. I've got it open in a window, and I'm going to hit present, share screen, window. There it is. All right, so this is a high-res version of that car, and I think I can zoom in.
Yeah,
so
pull her.
you can see on that car when I spoke to when we were discussing the design with Joey Ferrito and at Tangent, man, they've got such an amazing library of stuff. And Dan Kohlberg is a name that many of you may know, and he's Dan's or Dave Lulbach, Tangent's artwork guy that I work very closely with on these. And as we were putting this car together, he goes, well, this reminds me of a lot of cars that would have been in this service. And here's 4 stencils that would have been appropriate. And this particular one was one of the 4. And I presented them all to the road owner. And think about actually plugging in a prototype railroad in your return stencil so that like this series of cars would be in that larger pool that was also serviced by prototype railroads. And that's the one the road owner chose.
That sod car is sharp.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
So that ties the freelance directly into real life that way.
Yep.
Indeed it does.
That's
and of
awesome.
course his passenger train fleet, he calls them the arrows, right? So he's got his passenger train logo on there. So we built that into the high cube car, like the Santa Fe had the Route of the Chiefs, and the CNW had the 400s and stuff like that. So it follows that same marketing theme that railroads of the era had, but we did it on a little bit of a cooler car than a regular 40-foot box car, I think. And what a great billboard. I mean, this would all be much more compressed if it were not on a high cube box car. So just a really great car.
That's amazing.
I can probably go to the Cass County car, I guess, since we talked about those in
Sure.
I'm going to close this out here. And Cass County.
Yep. I mean, this is fantastic because I just went out and grabbed the sod car now.
Did you really?
I did. I just went out and got. I'm like, this is happening. This is happening.
Oh,
all right. So this is the Cass County car, and the unique stencil to Tom Johnson's Cass County. When empty, return to CCRR agent Logansport, Indiana. So that's a
Oh, that's cool.
location on his shoreline. So, you buy this car, you're running it on your railroad, you've got a tie running on down your right of way to his railroad. And what we came up for the farm implements piece was this stencil here. It didn't quite photograph well, but car assigned to John Deere Farm Implements Indiana Division is what that says.
Wow.
Another thing I do with all of the Tangent or all the HomeShops cars, because really these are works of art in my opinion.
My goodness, that's
And
awesome.
A work of
well
art
done.
has a signature, right? But you can't get out a Sharpie and scribble somebody's name on the side of one of these cars. So I incorporate the road owner's name in the truss stencil. So that says T. Johnson Equipment Corp. And then owner, lesser trustee, and a lot of them will have the name of a bank from the area or something that is long since disappeared. But we just, long after we're all gone, the car you bought, your kids sell it on the eBay, and somebody buys it, and they want to know what this is all about. Well, there's a little clue in the trust stencil as to who.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow.
Who originally bought that car? Where did that origins of these freelance railroads there embedded there.
This is so cool.
Let's see here. Heck, do we want to look at another one?
Heck
Can
yeah.
we? Can we? What about you, Doug?
Yeah, bring it on.
Bring it on.
Let's see here. Should we talk about the car that isn't part of this release?
Yeah, we can. We can.
There's
Because it's going to be a standalone car, right?
It's going to be a standalone car. So there is a road name that is part of this run, and it's a road name that, believe it or not, I was asked quite a bit, when are we going to do a Suffern Hoboken interstate transfer car? And this is a freelance model railroad that is developed by a fella named John Vazuan. It's been around, I think, maybe 20, 30 years. And, I've come across pictures of rolling stock, and there's even locomotives. And originally I didn't really pick up on it. Didn't really do much for me, But as I started HomeShops, this was actually one of every show I would go to, somebody would ask, when are you going to do one of John's cars? And I developed a relationship with John because he actually does a lot of custom painting. He's got a Facebook page called Southern Tier Model Works, where he advertises his custom painted equipment. And he does a lot of custom painting for Daniel Archer, who owns the West Falls Northern, which is a road that is part of our first release. You've got one of the 4750s. So when Dave Lelbeck of Tangent reached out to me and said, Chris, we've got the Mini High Cube on deck. You've got about a month or so to decide if you want in, and let me know, what the road names are. So at that time, I put the net out and reached out to obviously the railroads that you just saw, and I talked to John, and I said, what do you think about doing an actual car? And he thought about it, and he decided, let's do it, because most road owners keep it personal. They want to own all the equipment that goes out and how it goes. But it ended up being a really fun project, and as part of that was going on, I'm watching, many of you are familiar with Dave Abelese and his Onondaga Cutoff and his Facebook Live events, and I'm watching a train go by on an operating session there, and there's one of John's cars in the middle of Constance just rolling by, and I thought, all right, there are people out here who get it, so let's have fun with the car. And this was one of the more difficult ones to do because John is very, very particular about the artwork and the logo, but he did not have a vector file. The decals he made were based on a hand-drawn piece of artwork that he had, one hard copy that he actually sent me, and I scanned, and we involved Jim Abbott of Highball Graphics, and he redrew that artwork of the logo and the lettering and the style and the font. In the modern era, as folks now are developing their own concepts, you know, that we have so many computer fonts available. Most people plug in Arial or Helvetica or whatever, and you can do that.
Right.
But what he had done was before that time. So the lettering doesn't match exactly any font that's readily available. So I'm close, but not close enough for John. So we actually got Jim Abbott involved and redrew the artwork. So when I've followed back up with Dave Lellback, and I said, all right, I've got 6 road names I want to do, and this was number 5 on the list. I said, here are the 6 roads I want to do. Let's talk about number 5. Just, you know, because Tangent is very, very serious. He's very, very protective of the reputation. And I said, I want to make sure there's no issues with this. And just dead silence from him for 3 days. And I get a text from him and said, all right, let's do John's shit. And I thought, this is going to be a fantastic project. So we've got it. And I had announced it at the, I had the samples for all 6 roads at the National Train Show, which was here in the Fort Worth area just a few weeks ago. And there's another manufacturer that is coming out with a product that is appropriate to bundle with this. And we had a meeting and a photo shoot. And if you were paying attention to the posts during the National Train Show, you might have a clue of what it is. But that isn't quite ready. I think we'll have that product to make available with this here, and hopefully by the end of the month. So the cars are in. 5 of them are available now, and keep watching the Facebook groups and our postings. We're also on Instagram for a special announcement with John's car. So this will also be available in 2 roads.
Just so you know, Chris, I just bought a Cass County car.
Well, they're going fast. I better make sure I set that inventory to where I've got one for myself when it's.
I did. I tell you
Andy
what,
doesn't get his shipped. I see how this goes. Andy won't get his shipped.
I am just such a fan of Tom John's work. He's one of my personal idols, and he's become a friend of mine and stuff like that. That even though I've got to have a car of his layout.
And that's what I'm finding. A lot of people that I know are not modeling the specific era of a particular car they buy from me. They're buying it because there is a personal connection to the road owner, which is something nobody has with the prototype offerings, right?
Right.
And that makes this stuff even more special to modelers, to collectors.
So earlier you mentioned about, you know, people bringing up, hey, I want to do this car. You know, and that's you make you start making your short list for certain types of cars.
Right.
And then all of a sudden Tangent decides to come out with whatever gondola, you know.
Right.
And I'm just saying that there was no gondola announcement by Tangent. I'm just saying, I'm using it as an example. So then do you go to your short list and say, boy, these guys were talking about this type of car, but boy, these might look really cool on a Gon. Let me get a hold of these guys and start talking to them about maybe doing a gondola instead of doing this other one, so we can start getting their stuff.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
I mean, there's very few. I wonder if I've got one here. So a book that is like a Bible to me is this.
OER.
Oh, the ORE.
And and I grew up just pouring through these, you know, even before high school, right? You'd see something, you know, go down the tracks, and when you're out rail fanning, and what is that? And I'd go to this book and discover that here's this railroad that had this entire roster, and I wasn't familiar with any of it, right? And the lesson there is, and this has become very evident with my relationship with the McClellans and what we're doing with the V&O. You know, there's only a finite little piece of the V&O roster that was actually modeled by Alan McClelland, right? And, you know, some people, you know, think, well, if we do a different type of car, well, that's not what Alan had, right? But is it what the V&O would have had? If you go to some of the smaller railroads in the official railway equipment register, and you'll find there's 15, 20 pages of line items of different types of cars, you know, 10 pages, 8 pages. Even just a one-page roster, maybe 50 different car types, right?
Right.
So it's not reasonable to think that everything that was modeled by Alan would have encompassed every line item in the official railway equipment register of what was the V&O fleet, right? So there are a lot of cars, to your point, I'll reach out to, when they become available to a road owner, like the Pillar Valley, the mini high Q boxcar. He'd never done one of those. I'd never seen a picture of one of them before. But you have the conversation now from the perspective of you're the railroad owner. This is what you're trying to convey happened, what your railroad looked like at this time. Would it be conceivable that there would have been, a product your railroad would have shipped that would have used this car, and maybe you would have bought it, right? And there are people, one that comes to mind is the Brian Bannett and the Copper State Railroad. There's some cars I brought to his attention that I thought would have been a shoe-in. He was very adamant that car would not have been on the Copper State. Not okay. We move on to the next car. When something else comes available, and I think it might be a good fit, I'll reach out to the road owner and either yay or nay, and we'll go from there.
I feel almost as if my next question, Andy, is going to be a simple one-word answer.
No.
Yeah, it's going to be no.
It's going to be no. It's going to be no. And section crew.
I would do it in HO scale. How's about that?
Section crew. Hey, section crew. It is not what you think.
It's still no. Whatever
it's still
it
going
is.
To be no matter what. Yeah. No, I mean, have you ever thought about working with someone like Scale Trains or Athearn or Atlas or somebody along those lines, or even Rapido or somebody on a Locomotive series?
Yes, and our first Locomotive is in motion.
That's two. That's 1 point. That's 1.5.
2 points. You get
no.
2
That's
points.
1.5. That's only a half. It's not official. It's kind of there.
I'm not entirely sure that we're at the point where it should be announced, but
no, just keep it under wraps. We don't want you to. We don't. We can do that later.
Yep,
we can do that later.
That's very, very cool. Because I wasn't sure if you wanted to kind of keep it, because you're doing such a great job with the freight cars, right? And locomotives are a completely different beast. There's so much more. I mean, with a freight car, you can throw down one color and some lettering and doing what you need to with that. And once you get that all squared away, that's it. You have a box basically to work with. With locomotives, you have different angles. How does the paint scheme translate? How does this do? How does this do? How does this? It seems like a locomotive would be much more time consuming to try to develop rather than a freight car would be.
What I will say, what is most challenging now with the locomotive product, if we were doing this 30 years ago when Athearn had a stock SD40-2, we could plug that stock SD40-2 in any road, and no one would bat an eye because everybody had the same stock SD40-2.
Right.
But I will just hypothetically say, let's say, Rapido were to come out with a C30-7, and we were to decide hypothetically to do a V&O C30-7. Well, there's going to be a very specific UP version and a very specific NDEM version and a very specific Santa Fe version. And in our quantities, we would not warrant our own tooling. So we would have to figure out now which version of this locomotive produced would be the best fit. And then is that version being produced in the right era for what we think would generate the most sales for that railroad, right? So we're testing the waters. It's a much bigger investment, and that's really the hurdle. This whole HomeShops experience has taught me a lot about many things, including small business and getting financing, and those wheels starting to move a little bit better, faster. So
I would imagine it'd be a much more limited run too, right? Where you might not be able to crank out 4,000 of them. I mean, you're not going to have something like that. I mean, you might.
No. And minimum order requirements vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, but generally you're looking 200 to 300 locomotive range
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
minimum.
So you're talking about the business itself. Your team's growing.
Well, it's and Doug can chime in, but the most amazing part of this is the enthusiasm. People that I haven't seen in 10, 20 years, people that I'm meeting for the first time. Every manufacturer that I worked with, there's somebody on that team that is like a HomeShops fan. They've got their own freelance. They're a big freelance guy, and there's a lot of talent all over the place. And I've got to tell you, I've been very fortunate that I've gotten a lot of help from behind the scenes from a lot of places where I didn't expect it. And but it is growing, and I do still have the full-time job, and I do still have the family. So sometimes timing is just fortuitous. Doug, your brother, was at the Red River RPM, and that kind of jump started our relationship.
Yep.
And it just turns out that he's offered a little bit of time, and I've got some projects I'm going to send his way. But the point here is that it's not entirely just a one-man show, and we are growing. So it's a lot of time. It really is a lot of time.
So there's going to be a couple questions here from me, and then we'll field a couple from the audience. So this one's for both of you guys. So is this being part of a model railroad manufacturer? Is that kind of pull away from you being able to go to operating sessions and really enjoy the hobby, or does it add to it? What would you guys say?
Doug, I'll let you go.
All right, yeah, I'll jump on that one. For me, Andy, it's a dimension added to what I'm able to do. I have an opportunity to get to, like I said before, a number of fine operating layouts across the country, in particular in the region where I live. I live in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So I have the opportunity to talk with folks, bounce ideas off of them, and then sometimes be the fly on the wall and listen as folks are talking. One of the things that Chris and I had talked about is part of the work that I did throughout my rail career was new business development and economic development. And that was done on a large scale at BNSF Railway. I had long story short, I was the Southeast Region Economic Development Manager. So I had the 5 states at the southeast end of the railroad: Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee. And I was involved in some very interesting projects at very high levels within BNSF, as well as in each of the 5 states that I had. And I learned a lot about networking, listening, not just hearing people, but listening, and the ability to connect the proper players. And what I wanted to do with Chris is build on the relationship that he and I had from our BNSF days, and then bring that forward to HomeShops. And as Chris noted, my brother, Don, lives in Coppers Cove, Texas, very, very talented modeler. And he participated in the Red River RPM in years 1 and 2. Second year was this year, and he had the opportunity to meet Chris. And then he sent me a text, and he was on the phone. And I said, well, is Chris there? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So he put Chris on, and the rest is history. Because
just like old times.
Yeah, at first I was watching, what was going on with HomeShops, and then looking at cars. And Chris mentioned Dave Abelise's Conrail Onondaga Cutoff. Fortunate to be a member of the regular crew with Dave Abelise. And I saw some of the HomeShops cars in person, and I said, this is too cool for school. So talked with Chris and said, hey, what's going on, type of thing. And, are you looking for somebody to help since you're a one-man band? And I was very careful in how I framed that, because I wanted Chris to know that I understood that he's done an awesome job in the 2 years that he's been doing this. But I thought, okay, is it time to add a little bit of horsepower? And is there a role that I can take and help you with this as we look to build on the very strong foundation that you already have, and then get the word out to additional people that would be interested in, whether it's layout owners or potential investors or modelers like the four of us. And, you guys are scooping up the equipment as we were talking, and that's the type of thing that we're looking for. So whatever I can do to help move that along, that's what I want to be able to do to help Chris.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. So then, do you share the same affinity for freelance as the I guess the rest of us do, or are you more of a prototype guy?
Yes and yes.
Good. That's the right answer.
Yeah.
That's the perfect answer.
That's the right answer. Yeah, we'll bring back. We're gonna do the awkward question of the day. That might be a new thing that we do, but I do have one pegged up for, and you don't have to answer it now, but we'll also ask the section crew too of what is your favorite freelance railroad. So hopefully we'll get some really cool answers, and you can't say your own. That's the rule. So, but anyways, so that's fantastic. So you got some new stuff coming up in the works, some really exciting stuff coming up with the potential motive power on the horizon. And I did want to circle back, Matt Forkham, one of our former guests on the show, and he's got a freelance railroad of his own. He asked the question, so what was the story about bringing the Washington Northern to HomeShops? Because I know and I'll speak for myself, the Washington Northern has a big influence on, one of the influencers that's happening over here. So it's just kind of interesting, being one of my favorite freelance railroads, to see that one come across the HomeShops line. So how'd that one get brought up?
Well, that's a really good question. The Washington Northern is probably one of the earlier freelance railroads that I can remember discovering on my own on YouTube, like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
maybe longer than that. And it was always a railroad that struck me as I could actually see myself modeling this freelance railroad. It just the way he did it, the way he put it together, it was captivating. So this particular order of cars with the Intermountain, which is the 3 box cars I think behind you, the Seaboard Central car, the Allegheny Midland car, and the green Washington Northern. That was my first Intermountain project, and I had avoided Intermountain because they had a high in a minimum order quantity, 300 cars per road name. But I knew I needed to get 50-foot box cars out there, because that's, the 86 box cars are challenging because some people, they're just too big,
right.
So the conversation came up with Intermountain. It was an introduction from another project that was handed off to me, and this car was on deck, and it was, you want in, you can get in, but it's got to be quick. Yeah. So very nervous. My gut told me, let's not do a 300 order, 300 cars per road name. It's just, when you're ponying that up. So I said, if I'm going to do it, I need to do heavy hitters. So, the Seaboard Central. He's got, I think, 7,000
Garland
on his YouTube channel, I think.
Yeah.
And so there is people who are there is a market. Those are people who are already fans of the Seaboard Central, and I would have to imagine if I were one of those 7,000 not associated with HomeShops, and now I had an opportunity to buy one of those cars, I would. So. Tony Kester's A&M Island was also a no-brainer, and I've developed a relationship with Tony through some other projects, so I reached out to him, and he thought, yeah, let's do that car, it's a good fit. And Tony even handpicked some of the road numbers that we produced in that series. And then the Washington Northern, when I very first started HomeShops, was one of the roads I just had in the back of my head. I want Washington Northern cars on my road. I just want them, And so when I thought I need a heavy hitter, I considered the Washington Northern to be one, because even though he hasn't produced a lot recently, he's building a new layout.
Right.
the timestamp on the stuff that he's posted is 10 years old, so that's 10 years that people have searched Freelance Model Railroad, and some of his videos have come up and they've watched it. So I thought, let's reach out to Kevin Kletke, and I did reach out, and he was like, "What? You want to do what? Really? You're sure? Let's do it." So it was just as simple as that. At first, I mean, and not that HomeShops is established, we still have a lot of runway ahead of us. But versus our first project, where I reached out to road owners, and I reached out to people I knew, because it, couldn't be who. We've now gotten enough of our name out there that when I reach out to a road owner, chances are they're already familiar with what we're about and what we're doing, and have an idea of what we can produce, and the conversations go a lot quicker now.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I mean, I just went back to make sure I knew what I was going to be talking about. But that Seaboard Central car, I knew it. I recognized that car from the second I saw it.
Yeah,
because I'm like, okay, that's Savannah State Docks. And I went back to the website. I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I thought it was. But because there's still a handful of those cars floating around. Matter of fact, I just had one in Manitowoc here not too long ago. It doesn't look anything like that anymore.
Yep.
But it's clearly, it was a severely faded and rusted up and everything like that. But you could tell it was a Savannah State Docks car. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, that these cars are still floating around. So with that being said, are these owners of the, like, when you're doing these research and stuff like that, do guys say, hey, I want it to look a certain, like, I want it to emulate like the Savannah State Dock car? Was that something specifically earmarked for that car?
That was very specific in that conversation. And as a matter of fact, if you go to the Seaboard Central YouTube channel now, or the Facebook page, the video that Tim Garland posted this weekend is a history of the Seaboard Central, and he's got the system map, and he talks about how it actually acquired the Savannah State Docks. And when I first reached out to Tim Garland about the Seaboard Central car, he sent me a lot of pictures of the car, and not saying this in a disparaging manner at all, but what he sent me was a lot of brown box cars with just reporting marks, like they were patches. I mean, that's what he had. He really hadn't branded what does a Seaboard Central box car look like, in the 90s, or would it have looked like new? And so the conversations we had was about the significance of this, and what the two inspirational schemes he had. He said, I've always loved that Savannah Docks theme. We can do it with my own slogan, and the two maritime flags are for the letters S and C in there for Seaboard Central. Or he really liked the Pan Am black and blue scheme. And I said, well, let's go with a livery of a railroad that doesn't still exist. Let's, that was something that he had already wrapped his head around. But that design to paint that diagonal white stripe over a ribside car is something that's intimidating for us to do if you're masking it and painting it yourself. But when you're approaching these projects from the perspective of what can we do with the resources at a factory, the sky's the limit with what we can do. So that was really a fun conversation, lengthy back and forth process with Mr. Garland, to develop what would become the face of now Seaboard Central rolling stock. And there will be more blue and white projects in the future. I can tip my hat to that, at least.
Tim's railroad is so cool.
It is. My own I find a lot of freelancers get some kind of inspiration in the branding from a short line railroad. You probably noticed the resemblance of my own Meridian Speedway railroads, the Texas and Great Northern and the Natchez Trace and Orient, to a prototype short line family that Georgia Pacific had. They actually drew a Northern, had that green and white scheme with the silver trucks. Yeah. And that was just me wanting to draw in, to this world, personal experiences I had on those properties when I was younger. And that's very common, I think, to see folks drawing on something from something they've seen. And more often than not, it's a short line inspiration.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
That's really awesome. So, um, I wanted to. I'll save this one for the end, but there was a question about the patch outs, and we kind of touched on that, right? So patch outs aren't really something that you're going down that route just because you want that eye-catching brand appeal, right?
Well, what do you mean by patch out? Like,
So like a
car that's
patch out, yeah, like a serious car with a patch out, like so. For example, like a Burlington Northern, um, like a patch out to like the Seaboard Central does, right? Where he has a
right.
lot of patch out equipment.
Well, the point of this whole exercise is to really champion freelance model railroads. And I would not want to go on record as saying that I would never do a patch out car. But in terms of how do I
Nothing's
elevate
on the record here.
how do I elevate the Seaboard Central now with this first project when the second blue and white car comes out?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to make that connection. But all the patch out cars just kind of blend in with a sea of patch out cars, right? And patch out cars are an easy go-to for us as modelers when we're doing a one-off car. We can get a car, we can patch it easily, and we can put it out there. But I think it's not the best way to put the resources that are involved in a freight car. Look at what we've done with the Seaboard. Look at all the excitement with the Washington Northern, with this car that's out. If all of those roads, I'm certain that if I patched out a rail box and put AM on it or VNO on it, they would sell. I mean, I would want one, right? But at the end of the day, you go to a club and you watch that car go by, you're going to think, well, there's just another rail box car that's patched, right? You're not going to it's not going to have the same, lasting impression that's actually Tony Kester's A&M Allegheny Midland rolling down, the club here, and you're gonna remember that. So if the right thing to do, and it's a railroad that's absolutely just reporting marks in a patch, and that person has championed that and has a following for it, that might be worth a $10,000 investment maybe. But if we have at our disposal a factory that can pad print the very, 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 very specific branding of a railroad, why not take advantage of that and turn it into a project? So that's kind of the thought process behind that.
Yeah, good deal. So there was a couple other questions. Boomer Diorama had one here, said, like to hear a little more on how Doug got into model railroading in his youth. No pun intended. Do you want to share how you got into the hobby back when things were, when you were younger, or just recently, maybe? Who knows?
Yeah, that was credit goes to my father.
Okay.
He recognized my interest, and he fostered and cultivated that. Basically, we started way back when in the. My mom wasn't real happy about this, but he'd take the Lionel track and laid it down on the carpet in the dining room, and it was going around some of the furniture. So we did that, and then eventually we went up into the attic, and we had some Lionel, we had some American Flyer, we had a little bit of HO, had a little bit of everything. So that started it. And then he fostered that interest and cultivated the interest. So that was going back to my younger days. Then growing up, continued to have the interest. Was kind of a lone wolf for a while. There weren't any clubs or anything, but I kept reading different magazines, stayed interested. And then as I got into my adult years, had the opportunity when I was working for Conrail. Gentleman that was a good personal friend and was my boss for a short period of time. He introduced me to a round robin Monday night model railroad group, which was called the Monday Night Group. And I think we had about four or five different layouts that we rotated around on Mondays. So that got me into the network in the Philly area. And then from there, that led to getting invited to other layouts, and that got me to where I am now. So it's been a real interesting ride, far surpassed any expectations I could have had like we talked about at the beginning of the show this evening, we talked about my recent trip, but there's been other trips to well-known railroads, getting to be a member. Chris talked about Tony Custer. Had the honor several years ago to crew a couple of extra board sessions, and then Tony sent me an email and said, "Hey, I really appreciate you helping us fill in. Would like to promote you to a regular crew." And I looked at the email. I said, "Okay, so."
Yeah. How do you say no to that? How do you say no to that? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
So
goodness.
it's again, fellas, it's far surpassed any expectations I could have had to be able to regularly operate on different railroads that I operate on. So that'll take you from when I was a young kid to to now a retired railroader, but having the opportunity again. And I know I've said that a lot. It's an opportunity and a blessing to be able to do this and have fun with it.
Yeah, it is a lot of this hobby's very cool, and I'm glad that I get to talk to all of you people that come on the show and share experiences with us. So, and the audience too. So that's really awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So Chris, you have something pulled up? There was a comment in the chat about a
I don't
certain
know.
railroad.
I want to see this.
I saw a comment
I
there,
just-
Larry. Larry
I just
posted a road name, and I thought, you know what, this one's close enough. I'll go ahead and throw out a teaser. So
You wanna do this?
yeah.
All right.
So
Seriously, just shut up and take my money, okay?
We-
Just
Just wait.
we actually have 3 Allagash cars in the works, and this is
Wow.
the first one, and they should be available next month. They are in the United States. This was our first project with Mike Confalone, and Jim Abbott helped out with this as well. So pretty excited. We'll have this one available in 3 road numbers.
no.
You're going back to HO, Mike.
Except for Mike, I'm going to have a 12-pack of 12 numbers.
Yeah.
Very, very specific. All of the verbiage, the grain loading only was a request of Mike Confalone, and the number series was handpicked in lengthy truss stencil. This is just a low res picture that the factory sent. I've probably had this for 8 months, 6 months, I don't know. But the cars have arrived here, and they should be a release for next month. Hopefully, the 4427s.
Yeah. Those are beautiful.
Those are exciting cars.
Yep. I guess I'll just have to buy those too when those come out. So
Well,
you got my number.
I guess if we're going that route, I'll share.
And Doug's taking notes. All right. So Andy likes that one too. So make sure to get that one out in front of him. Put it on his Facebook page. And we got another one coming here. Oh, heavens.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Oh no, there's a railroad that I grew up admiring.
Mhm.
That was just such a cool concept.
Wow.
It was so far much of a departure from what everybody else was doing when they were designing and building a layout, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
It was because is he the one that designed or coined the phrase the domino theory? Is he the one that
I
started
believe
that?
that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So this car, like John Bazulin's shit lines, the Cat Mountain Santa Fe, and I'm not putting them on the same plane at all, but I am saying that this is a road name that I heard a lot of. When are you going to do a Cat Mountain car? When are you going to do a Cat Mountain car? And
Yeah.
what's interesting, and I remember the Cat Mountain in being excited about it, but also being a little disappointed because I would read an article or see a picture, a video, or whatever I was looking at, and I thought, I've looked at a Santa Fe layout. I didn't come away with the feeling that, this was not the Santa Fe. This was, the Cat Mountain, and a lot of the equipment that you saw was just plain Santa Fe equipment. So a lot of people said, as I started putting feelers out, you'll never get David Barrow to let you do a Cat Mountain Santa Fe car. He's very protective, whatever, don't even bother asking is what I told. And I thought, well, I haven't ever listened to people before. Why start now? So I reached out to and very, very, very politely, very simply said, "Hey, here's what I'm doing, and I'd like to include a Cat Mountain offering because people want it." And you know what his response was? He said, "Chris, do you really think anybody would buy one?" That's what he said.
Wow.
Really?
I said, David, when you go to the Google machine and you search freelance model railroad, most of the top 10 responses will have a video with you or some reference to the Cat Mountain Santa Fe. I mean, it's something that most of us who now have our own freelance model railroad, along with the V&O and the AM and the Ohio Southern, people have a soft spot for the Cat Mountain Santa Fe.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this car was a no-brainer when the 4427s were coming along. And of course their, prototype Santa Fe versions and all that artwork exists. It was a very easy plug-in with some minor modifications to that Cooper standard font that Santa Fe used to actually get Cat Mountain all the way across the car. The number of the ribs were just right on the 4427 to make it. I would prefer the car had one more rib panel so that there would be a space between Cat and Mountain, but it's just an awesome car. And it
looks sweet.
That is so cool.
That is fun.
So, Mike, to your dismay, this will be in 7 road numbers.
I only need one.
Mike,
but
you can.
There's a 12% discount if you buy 6 or more cars, automatically applied at HomeShops.
That's a good point, Chris. That's a good point.
I have a plan. You guys are, jeez, Louise. I have a plan. Now that I see some of these coming out, I already have a plan. And I can see I'm going to be spending some money with HomeShops.
Yeah.
I would ask
it's
you,
way too cool.
If there's a Farland Terminal project, but I think it would be insulting to you if I put out an HO car and before an
absolutely not. Absolutely not. I will tell you something right now. I would prefer to have my Farland Terminal stuff out in HO scale because of the fact that number one, it helps to brand my layout and it helps draw people into my layout. Mm-hmm. And that way, even though I'm modeling in S, the modeling is what's important, not necessarily always the railroad.
Indeed.
So if I would love to have a Farland Terminal box car, I would love to have that in HO scale.
Do you have that S scale card next to you?
I actually do.
The audience, I'm just curious, maybe in the comments, what folks think about that if it were to be.
I'll bring it up here on the big screen. We'll do solo layout.
I saw a comment about Allagash cars. There'll be 3 road numbers of the 4427. So tell us a little bit about that Farland Terminal. I know that your viewers obviously know, but
yeah, it's the lighting on it's horrible, but I mean it's a beigeish tan color car with like a forest green door, and the theory behind this was they bought these during the per diem era of the late 70s and the early 80s. Mm-hmm. So as time went on, the railroad had more cars than actual railroad to hold them. Mm-hmm. So they started getting rid of them. Well, what happened is they ordered 100 of these, but they ordered them in 2 separate sets. They were a set of, the first 50 had the green door and the logo and the logo.
Yeah, now you got it.
And the second 50 have a tan door and no logo. They were plain because they just wanted to get them out. They didn't want to deal with waiting. They just said, paint them and get them over here. And that was it. And as time went on, the theory is now that there's only like 15 of them left in existence. So this is going to get kind of weathered up because I'm modeling the 90s, and there's only going to be a handful of them left, and the ones that are left are going to be pretty well weathered. But it's the logo itself is actually kind of a combination of the Green Bay and Western rectangle turned into a flag type deal, and Milwaukee Road station sign font is what that is. And it's kind of those are the two railroads that prototype railroads that I really gravitate to. And so I kind of wanted to somehow incorporate those two into my railroad somehow. So, and then be honest with you, I actually did look up. I'm pointing at the back of the car because I'm looking at the back and I'm like, oh, here's the reporting mark. I'm pointing at
nice blocking, Mike.
Yeah, I know. So the reporting mark, I looked that up on the actual AAR reporting mark register to make sure it was not used. And FT is not used by any real railroad or any other transportation company. And then the number on here is believe it or not, it's going to sound sappy, but I thought, my wife puts up with a lot of garbage with this. So I put our wedding anniversary as we were married in May of 1994. So I made it the 405 is the car number on here.
Nice.
And this is
the top.
Well, oh yeah, I don't know if this will translate very well.
But he's got the overspray on there too.
I have the overspray. You might be able to see it there a little bit. There's overspray on it, and I painted this one, and it turned out really, really well, and I'm really proud of the way this is. But if this was made in HO scale, gone.
Tell me about the S-scale market, in your opinion.
So if you made them in HO scale, they would be like amazing. Yeah, the S-scale market.
Yeah, are there many freelancers in the S-scale market that are S-scalers, or
there's a lot of guys that freelance. The problem is there's not a lot of commercially available product. I actually had to strip that from something else in order to paint it.
Yeah.
And there's only a handful of manufacturers that will actually do anything, and nobody's really making anything new. Well, there are some people that are. There's one company in particular that is throwing new product out there, and that's Scale Trains, but it's rehashing old tooling that they've had, and so we haven't had new car come out in anything but like a resin car in like for a long, long time. I know that there's a couple in the works, but they've been in the works for years now. And I've seen HO Scale come out with 3,000 different pieces of equipment over the fact that they can't get one put together. So the S scale market, honest to God, it's a little shaky. It's great for freelancing.
Well, sure. The eyesight is going.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's really cool, Chris, that you'd go ahead and share those, I guess, things to come with us this evening. That was unexpected, and it's making for a great show. We're getting a lot of good feedback.
Trained.
I'd say more, but I'm not sure that Mike can handle it. So we'll let him.
Oh, I can handle it. Well, let's see.
But we're also getting quite a bit of positive response, Mike, on your boxcar. And I know I'm biased because we're friends, but you know, you got the no BS section crew tonight. And they gave you some really good feedback on it. It's a sharp looking car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it, everybody. I did a lot of research on it. I really did. I have a book about the per diem era boxcars, and I really like the way, and as a matter of fact, at work, where I work, the paper company, the box plant that we get, they actually get a bunch of like LRS and boxcars and a couple of other railroads. They're still per diem car paint schemes.
Yeah.
And they're every time I get one of those, I try to take a picture of it because you never know when those schemes are going to go away, right? Everything's getting painted brown with white letters nowadays. I mean, it seems like, you know, the more and more generic. So,
here it just popped up on my picture here. We're going to add another one.
Oh no!
Whoa!
Yeah,
that's really slick.
That's sharp.
The reason I picked this picture is you had talked about the Farland terminal reporting marks and how it was important to you that it was a unique reporting mark. The Mesquite Belt is the freelance railroad of a fellow named Devin Jackson. He lives in the Palestine area of Texas. Mm-hmm. He's a Katy fan, and there's a huge Katy influence on his railroad, but the Mesquite Belt is his freelance, and his reporting marks were MB. And as we developed this car, the conversation was, well, MB is also Meridian and Bigby in the real world. And you know, a suggestion I made was that, you know, just because you've modeled 2 cars or 10 cars or 50 cars with a specific reporting mark, what about the MKT and their MKTT reporting marks, right? There's you know, multiple variations of reporting marks that railroads had. How do you feel about doing something like that with this? And we went the route MBTT for the production cars, so that, you know, you've got a train list and you've got an exact rail Meridian Bigby box car in your train, and it's not going to end up right next to a Mesquite Belt car, because that would just have MB on it, because that would take away from the believability of the illusion that you're trying to put on that this could really happen, right? So I was really thrilled that he kind of bit on that, and these will be MBTT reporting marks, and these will represent cars that are repainted. The shop logo there, he wanted to dedicate to a friend of his who was a law enforcement officer. So he came up with a shop logo that had
that's so cool
to his friend, because he's also in emergency response down there professionally. So this car will be one of the road names that'll be with the other 4427s we showed. But it's relevant to the conversation of the reporting marks. And the Allagash car that I showed you is one where I was unable to talk Mike Confalone out of AGR, because, you know, there is a short line railroad that goes down to Pensacola that now has the AGR reporting marks. But there's a lot more history, you know, and there's a lot more content with this AGR, and there's a lot more name recognition with it. So I was willing to not make that a deal breaker to have AGR on the Allagash cars for obvious reasons, but it's part of the conversation. You know, you have to bring up all the potential conflicts, and if you do put a conflict out there, make sure that it's calculated and we can explain why we did it.
You know, another thing is, and the three of us know this, and I'm sure Andy does too, but I mean, the three of us have had to deal with it firsthand a lot of times at work. It's like when I worked for Wisconsin Central, we had WC was the reporting mark, right? But they also had WCCL, and they also had SSAM, and they also had, you know, they had those other two, and those were separate companies within the company for a way to hide rolling stock on the books, you know, and I know, like, was it the Union Pacific? They're the ones that have the CHTT.
Yep.
Is that UP? Is that Chicago Heights something?
Terminal transfer.
Right.
Terminal transfer. TT.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's where I actually first saw the double T on the back, and I thought. Then when you showed me that, I'm like, oh, there you go. That's a good idea.
It believable, you know.
Yeah, it makes it very, very believable. So you can actually have, you know, like maybe that's his grain division is, you know, the TT for some reason, you know, the TT denotes his grain division or something, you know.
He actually came up with a storyline, and I think we'll have a blog post that explains, you know, all of that. So
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That is really, really neat.
God, I'm so excited.
I know.
I've loved you guys since day one, but now and I know it's becoming a bit of a love fest here, and I'm apologizing, but you know, I absolutely, I cannot wait. And being a freelancer myself, like I love supporting all the other railroads. So anything that you guys throw out, I'm probably going to be picking up. So
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about that locomotive coupled to those HomeShops cars over your shoulder.
this little guy here. So this is the original Jeep 7 for the Mesquite Valley Railroad. So my freelance railroad is based in Wisconsin. It's kind of a short line type, regional type railroad. This particular model is an ex Chicago Northwestern 4133 that the Mesquite Valley bought before the Fox River Valley Railroad could buy it, and they repainted it in their own livery, which is essentially based off of, I mean, the M and the V is kind of based off of the Rock Island Bankruptcy Blue Big R, right? So that type of big, and Penn Central too, with the big like in your face lettering, and then it's just a simple green dip paint scheme, kind of similar to the Cass County, because short line or regional didn't have a lot of money, but they still wanted to have a brand to set themselves apart from everywhere else. So so it's basically we have some of our own equipment. I just actually got done with a stump car, a Tichy stump car that I put my own I guess lettering and logos on. I actually designed all the artwork myself. And then I have a fleet of 26-foot ore jennies that are all done up in the Mesquite Valley paint scheme as well. So it's an iron ore wood hauler that basically shuttles stuff north south in Wisconsin. So you'll see everything on there, especially grain cars, box cars, that type of stuff. But yeah, it's in the 80s, set in the 80s. So just out of the per diem, or just at the end of the per diem era too, right? I think they went to the 79 or something like that. So yeah,
A lot of
that's
freelance talent here. I enjoy seeing the Mesquite Valley posts, and I always liked what you did with the M logo, and I had never made the connection with a Rock Island inspiration. But now that you mention it, I see that. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Nicely done, because it doesn't scream rock. I mean, it looks like a what I really like about that M is it doesn't, to me, look like something that came from another railroad, but it doesn't, so it's white with yellow in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I think it looks good,
and right, it's the M, and then the M and V all together. So there was a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth in the design process there. So
indeed.
But it turned out, and I'll tip my hat to my wife. She helped out quite a bit with the design of things as far as the logo goes. But yeah, it's turned out great, and that's going to be, and I got branding all around me here with all the control panels and stuff like that, all MV. So yeah, real excited about the railroads. So yeah,
cool.
The thing about this freelance niche is there's just so many opportunities. Any one railroad can bear over the next 10 or 15 years repeat projects. Once the first car is out, for a road name, I consider that like the seed car for that road. And that when that first car sells out, well, all those people that bought that car, when that second car comes out, well, now they're already a fan of that railroad. They enjoy having that car in their fleet, and it's just leads to bigger and better things. And I love having the classics on board, but I sure love having railroads that don't have that level of status displayed on this, in the same train, on the same stage. That's really exciting to me to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really good. So I want to kick it over to the chat this evening.
Yeah.
So real quick, if you guys are joining late, we're talking with HomeShops LLC. They are a manufacturer that brings us premier, high quality freelance model railroad equipment. They've done quite a few. Well, this is their sixth run now, and they just announced that on the show this evening. Plus, they're showcasing off some of the new stuff that's coming out. So make sure you guys check them out at, I believe it's homeshops. Let me see here, homeshops.net.
Yes.
Plaster that into the chat. It's also in the show notes as well, so we can you can pick it up there after the show this evening. So question here from Nathan. Let's see. Let me see here. Nathan said, would you consider doing virtual freelances, i.e. well-known railroads in the simulation community?
Ooh, that's actually a pretty interesting question.
I wonder if I can find the files.
Like making a three-dimensional model out of computer generated.
That was actually a route I wanted to go, and I had a fella that was very involved in the train sim community draw up a number of these schemes, and I've got ST40s for Kansas Pacific and my own C40s and various schemes out there, and I thought I would, as part of this, to help get these railroads out there and just generate more content. When you search for something, if there's a Mesquite Valley GP7 in the train sim world, when a car is offered and somebody's actually taken the time to make a video with that locomotive, well, there's that extra content. And I had quite a bit of it developed, and I just, as this has become all time consuming, I have not pursued that. And there is one fella that is I don't want to say it's tabled, but he's on the radar, and he's got his freelance railroad is based off of a railroad he discovered on a train sim program. I think it's the Adriana County. That we might just do a car of that at some point in time. So, I mean, to the question you asked me, do I have a model railroad physically? I don't. And I don't see any difference between model railroading on paper and creating the website like I have, and generating a railroad digitally that way versus in train sim versus brick and mortar. You've painted the S-scale car. To me, it's all model railroading. It's just a different medium that we use. And what really brought that on my radar when I was first launching this company, I thought, how do I put freelance model railroads on the same medium as prototype model railroads? And train sim, an easy win, because there's a lot of that for prototype railroads. So perhaps, I think you just gave me an assignment to give Mr. Watts here. We'll be talking after.
I see Doug taking notes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of there's a lot of talent in that digital market, and to be able to share that content is gold. It really is, because it's captivating. Some of it is really, really well done.
Yeah.
Now, see, the AWVR might be an issue, because that might have some proprietary hurdles you might have to go through with licensing with, like, who was that? Universal Studios that made that movie, that made Runaway Train?
I couldn't tell you.
Or, I mean, that's not Runaway Train.
Unstoppable.
Unstoppable.
Yeah, Unstoppable.
Mike, what was the only character in that movie that was prototypical?
The what?
In Unstoppable, who was the only character in that movie that was prototypically portrayed?
Whatever.
The track rider giving the hand sign to the train crew. That was the only one.
Oh, that one? I was going to say the dispatcher, but that's about it.
No.
I was still trying to figure out. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how an engine with the brakes fully on and the throttle and idle and the guy getting off goes to the 8th notch with nobody there. That I kind of had a little issue with.
My
then
family refuses to watch a train movie with me because
oh, my wife is the same way. She won't. She says, "Nope, I'm not doing it. Nope."
Yeah.
I'm like in the middle of that one scene when they're trying to cross from one car to the or one engine to the next. I'm like, look, the angle cocks are close. I said, well, that would never be. These guys wouldn't even be moving. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, the hoses. I said, the MU hoses aren't even made. I said, unless this is set up like a box car, this thing isn't going anywhere. I'm like, I don't get what they're even trying to do here. And she goes, that's all she said is, will you please either leave or be quiet? I'm like,
Oh.
Yeah, Mike,
And
I've had folks tell me the same thing. So
yeah, right.
Be quiet or leave.
Quiet or leave. You're gonna ruin it for us. I'm like,
Yeah.
Do you guys find that hard to kind of to tuck it? Because like as me as a person who has, no idea, right? Because I don't work with the equipment every day, but God, I couldn't imagine. Is it all the time? You're always poking it out like in Back to the Future 3 or whatever, it's like, hey, that's not right.
Well, I know Unstoppable is based on a true story. They took some Hollywood embellishments, Hollywood liberties, I should say, with it. But like one of the things when they're like shooting at the side of the engine to try to get the fuel shut off to go and work, I'm sitting there going, you got to hold that thing for 4 seconds, right? I'm like, kind of shooting it's not going to do anything except for bounce off. I'm like, you're not going to do anything. I'm like looking at I'm like nitpicking every single last thing. Even when the derail scene came in, I'm like, those aren't going to hold up. I said, those things are only rated for X number of mile an hour. I said, this thing's going this one. Joy is like, will you please just shut up?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult.
So I think we'll introduce a new segment on our next show is movie reviews with railroad movie reviews with real railroaders. I think that would be just like Mystery Science Theater 3000, right? Where we all just kind of we all just sit down and we're just, and I'm quiet, like I'll be the guy in the spaceship, and then you guys can just rip the movie apart because I won't know any better. I think that's gonna be a hit. I don't know.
Mystery Science Theater 3000. I love that show.
Yeah, no, that's really good stuff. So we're approaching hour 2 here, and I do want to get back to the question that we posed here that I want to pose to our guests and Mike yourself. So and then folks in the chat, make sure that you throw your favorite freelance railroad out there as well. So all right, Doug, what is your favorite freelance railroad and why?
The V&O.
The V&O. Okay.
Reasons being, number one, I read a lot about it over the years, and had the, going to use the word again, had the opportunity, thanks to Steve Stewart a number of years ago from Stewart Hobbies, rest in peace, to operate on the original V&O. And then had the opportunity to attend a farewell to the V&O and got to see the second iteration of the railroad. Got to talk with Alan, get to meet him and talk with him. Quite a fine gentleman, way ahead of his time, and always appreciated what he did and how he treated the hobby, his contribution, and then personally how he treated me when I was in his home. Again, operating on the original and then the second iteration. So it's the V&O for me.
Okay. What about you, Chris?
Well, I had a very, very short list, and the V&O was on there, and I think I'm going to go with the Allegheny Midland, with Tony Custer's Allegheny Midland,
Really?
and specifically because of the way it interacted with and the respect that Tony and Alan had for each other, and how they showed that just like a real railroad, a model railroad is not just a party of one, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a community. It's handing off some of the story to somebody else. And I think the relationship between the both of them really got people thinking, how can I create a railroad that is just mine, or how can I create a railroad that is part of a network that doesn't exist, but I'm going to include other people? And of course, it's iconic. Tough choices also: Utah Belt, Cat Mountain, Santa Fe. Ohio Southern. Those are all ones. But I'm going to tell you, every railroad that we have worked with at HomeShops, I've become a fan of that railroad. And just like I'm a Santa Fe fan, or I'm a Rio Grande fan, or it doesn't matter. You can go to Moffett Tunnel and be a Rio Grande fan, and you can go to Tehachapi and be an SP fan, and you enjoy all of that. But I would say what happened with the Appalachian lines, I'll let Doug take the V&O side of the coin, and I'll go with the A&M. And let's not forget the Virginia Midland, and we do have some Steve King projects in the work as well.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah. So that'll be my official answer. How about yours?
I don't get to answer this question. I just get to sit. No, I'm polling. Mike, what's yours?
Well, growing up, it was the Utah Belt, but as I got older, especially in the last maybe 10 years or so, it's been Mike Confalone's Allagash. It's just what he's done with bringing that era and that season to life is, I mean, nobody models that season. I mean, it's the mud season, right?
It's brilliant.
And so it is. And the way he's incorporated, that was where I first learned about photo backdrops and how to start instituting them into your layout as an actual, part of the act of switching, with his paper mill and all sorts of stuff like that. It was very influential on me, and that's that right now is my favorite short line railroad. But Eric Bruman's Utah Belt, growing up, I was fascinated by that one. The V&O, I was a little too young to understand what was going on there, but I got what Eric Broman was doing. I understood it right out of the gate, and I thought it was really, really cool. So,
yeah. All right, I'll play the game here with you guys. So when I was a kid, and some of you might still think I'm a kid, I saw the Eric Bruman's Utah Belt on the cover of Model Railroader, and it's coming through that big S curve with the rock faces and the yellow and gray Southern Pacific type paint scheme, and my eyes popped right out of my head, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to have this big, huge freelance railroad, but it's changed a handful of times, over the last probably 10 years since I got back into model railroading. I like the Allagash a lot myself. I think it's just such a cool railroad. But when and I like the Seaboard Central as well. I just like what Tim's doing with the stories behind each of the locomotives he paints, and how he ties in a lot of the real world operations. But a guy that frequents our chat here, the Split Rock Mining Company, is, I think, in my top 5, because I, for whatever reason, when I saw his YouTube channel, it gave me the drive to say, yes, I can have a freelance ore hauler, because that's what I wanted. And Tom was able to teach, how to do the operations and to make it realistic and to make it believable. And I think Split Rock certainly has been a huge influence on me and what I'm trying to do here. So I think those would be my top 4 or 5 for sure. The Split Rock, Allagash, and then the Utah Belt, and then Cass County. I think Tom Johnson's Cass County we got to mention that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think those are my.
I'm mad at Tom, because he's just, every time I turn around, he's doing something that I'm like, my God.
And he just keeps
raising the bar. He just keeps going up. I'm like, can you let me catch up a little bit, please? He's so talented.
Indeed, he is.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay. And then there's a lot of good stuff coming in the chat, all the different layouts. And if you wanna catch some other freelancers out there, there's like the Tanino and Western and stuff like that. We did have a freelance week on our Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun. It's like Shark Week, but way better, with less sharks and more awesome railroad content.
Not as much
Um,
blood.
Not yeah. So we have a Facebook group out there. It's the Second Section Podcast. I almost said Split Rock Mining Company. Yeah. The Second Section Podcast Facebook group. We just got 3 questions to answer to make sure you're not a robot. And if you're a really smart robot, we'll let you in. But we got a really great modeling community out there, sharing content, answering questions, helping each other out. We're almost up to 1,000 people in the group. So if you want to have a good time talking model railroads, participating in things like Freelance Week, and then just keeping up to date with what's going on with the podcast, perfect place to be. So head out to the Second Section Podcast Facebook group. And then if you guys like what we're doing here on the channel tonight, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button, because that's a great way to support the channel. So we're up over 2,000 subs. So we had 1,000 subs last year, and that was in December. And now we're up over 2,000 subs. A lot of that's thanks to Boomer Dioramas and his latest post. But yeah, so we've had 100% growth this year. So thank you to all the people in the section crew that made that possible. And thank you to people like Doug and Chris for agreeing to come on the show and providing just knockout content tonight. It was amazing.
Yeah, that was beyond any expectation. Oh, here we go.
Oh no.
Oh no.
So we're gonna interrupt my diatribe here for some more sweet model railroad content. Stand by.
Oh no. Auto rack. Ohio Southern.
Yeah,
Look at that.
Wow. That's pretty.
just
guys-
a teacher.
Boy, you know what? That would have tied in great with my short line of the show today, too. Doggone it. There will be
all
a
right.
short line of the show the next time.
Yeah, this was
Just-
such a good show that we couldn't
Yeah. Oh,
we couldn't disturb the flow tonight. So that was really cool.
I did see somebody posted the Logansport and Indiana Northern that Tom Johnson had.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that one, because that's actually the railroad that got me really thinking about doing the small narrow shelf layout concept.
Yeah.
And it really is like it's kind of like the Bible of how to do a shelf layout in a room, if you really want to, and get a lot of detail out of it. It's a really great layout, or was a great layout. So
Yeah, for sure. Yes. So, all right, gang. So we're getting on hour 2 here. I want to essentially get tied down for tonight, but I do want to give an opportunity for Doug and Chris to give some final thoughts here as we close up, just about the home shops, the journey, freelance, model railroading in general, and all the fun stuff out there. So, Chris? We'll kick this one over to you. So we talked about a lot of the stuff in the hopper. It seems like you guys are on the brink here, busting wide open with all these projects. And so what's next? Are you guys going to shows? Are you going to be out, out in the world so we can come out and meet and greet you? Or what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, we do a few shows, and Doug may bring us some exposure to additional venues. This is the part-time gig, and as Mike and Doug can attest, time off to do shows from the daylight job is not easy to come by. So we do Amherst. I think we're going to be regulars at the Denver Rocky Mountain Show. I think we'll alternate Deschler and St. Louis, and we do a few shows, but that's the beauty of online. Everybody has access to a Home Shops product, and everybody can reach out, messenger or email. So it's really a a tight knit community, and we're not that far away. My mantra is just enjoy the journey. That's what I'm doing. One project to the next. And it's just fun to watch this grow. So everybody commenting, we're all part of the same community. I am awe-inspired by what everybody else is doing, and I consider it an honor just to be able to play a role in that. So thank you very, very much for your support.
Yeah.
Keep buying cars, because that money goes right into the next project. So buy 6 and you'll get 12% off.
Are the 40-footers sold out yet?
You know what? I haven't checked yet, but I'll bet we have enough to last through the first night. I'll bet we do.
I bet you guys will make her through. There wasn't that many. Yeah. What about what's the future hold for you, Doug?
To echo what Chris said there, definitely enjoy the journey, and this is all about having fun. And big thing for me is sharing information, and more, I find that folks are very willing to share information. I mean, early on in my journey in the hobby, it's some of it was, I'm keeping it close to the vest. Well, okay, what fun is that? But then more and more people are sharing info, and as far as the shows, yeah, as Chris said, that there's certain shows that we're going to be looking at. Definitely Amherst, and I know there's a lot of folks that attend that, so we're going to be there. Definitely come see us, and you can reach us, via the net. And again, bottom line, let's have fun.
Yeah, outstanding. Mike, I'm going to throw you the awkward. So what'd you think of the show tonight?
I'm not going to be able to go to bed. I got to be up at 5 a.m. And I am not. I'm glad I'm not going to have a lot to do tomorrow. So I'm not going to be able to.
My alarm goes off at 4:40 in the morning. So.
Oh man. What about you, Doug? Retired? Does your alarm even go off? Or
Yeah, it does. It's maybe not as early as the other two gentlemen, but I can identify with. Once upon a time, it's. I understand it, and I understand where they're coming from. But no, mine does go off. Not as early though.
Yeah, Doug's got 6 Saturdays and a Sunday he gets to worry about. That's what he gets to do.
He gets to plan his next operating adventure. I'm so jealous of you right now.
I tell you what. Tonight has been phenomenal. I want to thank both you, Chris and Doug, for coming on and for making the announcements and showing the things that you have today and explaining a lot about how the process actually goes and how things, because I think that's kind of lost sometimes, on manufacturing, is that everybody just thinks that it's, just a snap of the finger and bing, and everything just kind of magically happens. And it's a long process. And sometimes, I mean, there's slam dunks that you could swear are going to do really good, and you get real close to production time, and all of a sudden you find out you got to pull the plug on it because it's just not going to happen the way you want it to, and that happens with anybody. But and so I really appreciate you kind of letting us behind the curtain a little bit today, and everything that you guys are doing. It's fantastic what you're doing for the freelance community, and you always have my support, even though I'm not in HO scale, and it's just, it's just really, really, really cool to have you guys, out there making this stuff. And it's I don't know. I can't really say, like I said before, it's kind of a love fest, because it's just, since day one, I've been in awe of what you're doing. So it's like,
it's very reaffirming. Those comments, are what help us go on. So it's nice to hear, and the comments have been awesome to read.
I will say this much though. I did see one of your stickers on a prototype car the other day, and it did make me think of you. So.
Yeah, I thought it might be a marketing mistake to do the HomeShops Repair logos without our web address on it. But I thought when those do end up on real equipment, we need to not point the arrows to where it came from. So,
right?
People are recognizing it now. So yeah, I appreciate that, and thank you guys for the invite. This has been a good evening.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And again, if you ever want to come on and do announcements again, you guys are more than welcome.
Well,
Yeah, and
open invite.
if you guys are going to Rocky Mountain, there's rumors swirling that
I don't know. There's a rumor
there's
floating
rumors
around.
swirling that we may be tackling you for product. So,
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
but yeah, again, I just want to thank both of you guys for taking the time to come on this evening. It's, first of all, very fun, and I'm really glad I got to meet you both and actually get to talk to you,
Sure.
as opposed to message and email and stuff like that. So thanks for that and sharing your journey, but then again sharing the insights and what goes into the product, and then sharing the new and exciting products as they come out. So thank you so much for coming on this evening. So I do want to do a bit of administration here before we tie down for tonight. So if you've been haven't tuned into the show until just now, we're talking with Doug Watson and Chris Palmieri from HomeShops LLC, and they are a premier manufacturer of freelance model railroad rolling stock, and possibly locomotives to come. Maybe we'll see, but they've been sharing with us this evening some of their products and some of the good stuff. So make sure that you guys check them out at homeshops.net, and I'm going to put that in the chat again. It's in the show notes, so make sure you get out there, check them out. They just announced this evening 40-foot high cube box cars and 5 different road names, road numbers of each, and they are on sale as of right now during this show. So make sure that you go out there and grab them before they're gone, because there's only 72 of each. So make sure you get out there, get on that. If you guys want to check them out on social media, you guys are on Facebook at HomeShops as well, and then you said Instagram too, right?
Yes.
And that's where all the cool kids are. They're on the gram. That's what the young kids tell me. So, and then I do have Salvatore Natali's been asking a question. So this is the last question, then we'll close up for tonight. So, we talked about freelance. Is there any ambition for, would you do offline short lines that don't have any model representation, like the Arcade Attica Railroad or any of the short lines of the show that Mike and I have done on our show? This is an interesting question.
No.
No.
No. There's so many different directions we can go, and I don't want to lose sight of what is the home shop space in the model railroad manufacturing world. And we have been really embraced by a number of manufacturers because we're not competing in their space. And there's a whole different process that goes with actually being in business, recreating a prototype, and all of the research that goes into that. And that's our lane is freelance, and I don't want to confuse that with branching out into what the niches that the manufacturers are already in.
Okay, very good. And then
we would like to see those cars produced just like you would.
Yeah. And then Peter Tillman says, do you guys ship to Singapore?
I believe we do. All of our shipping is through ShipStation via Shopify, and I have not had a purchase from any country that we could not get to. DHL will pretty much go anywhere, and they're one of our shippers.
Yeah, fantastic.
So wait,
I see the wheels turning, Mike.
Wait, so you're gonna start here, you're gonna bring it all the way over here, and send it back over there.
Well,
Yeah, fair enough.
Regardless, I think you just made Peter Tillman very happy. Thanks
That's
for
awesome.
for fielding that. So
Yep,
yeah, and then let's not think about that too hard. But again, let's have a big thank you and a round of applause for
Thank you
Doug
very much.
and Chris this evening. And thank you for sharing everything that you did tonight. And we hope to see you guys out there again. So everyone out in the section crew, thanks for joining us this evening. You guys were great this evening. Comments and questions. And I think we're going to be on in 2 weeks, if memory serves me correctly. So everyone have a good night, and we'll check in again in 2 weeks. Night, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much.